Shalom Israel. This is Brother Stefano from WFI Trinidad. Come back at you with these precepts. Before I like to start, I like to give all honor and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai for this truth, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. A mighty shalom to everyone here watching the video. Right, a mighty shalom to everyone trying their best to keep the commandments for righteousness' sake. And shalom to once again everybody here watching the video. So the topic we basically going to go through is how to know if you're moving backwards in righteousness, or how to know if you're moving backwards in unrighteousness. Now the greatest question that you'll probably be saying right now is um how can you move backwards in righteousness? Shouldn't righteousness be a forward progress? But through the spirit of the Lord, you all don't understand the point that I'm trying to bring out. Because yes, your life can move backwards for righteous sake, and we'll get to that. So, if, precept we're going to start off with is Ephesians 2 and verse 1. So it says, "And you had he quickened who were dead in trespasses and sin." So the Lord, he quickened us. At a point in time that all of us were in sin. We were in the world, we was doing all sorts of folly, eating pork, crab, shrimp, lobster, not keeping the commandments, not keeping the feast days, not praying, not even having him in a thought other than to make a joke on these apps. Like for example, you see a meme and it says, if you laugh, you're going to hell. That's the only time we give reference to the Lord when we're in this world. But now we are quickened. We're supposed to be saying no to these stuff, right? And we're supposed to be quick with it. It's supposed to be like, hey, no to pork, no to this, no to that. That's how we should be. So it says, verse 2, "Wherein in time past ye walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience." So this sin, what all of us are battling, or what all of us um, came into the truth with, because when we heard the truth, um, we are commanded to put away these sins. These are the sins that we should have already um, cast out. But unfortunately, we know that there are a lot of brothers and sisters in this truth that still struggle and trying their best to put away the spirits. But Lord's willing, you overcome this. Because why? We are quickened. Right? We are quickened. Because the old man doesn't wait or doesn't wait until you this and that, right? The old man is always there ready to creep up on you. So here I have an image, and Lord's willing everybody could see it. So we have here this brother here praying, and this guy, the old man, ready to creep up on him, right? So the moment you slack off in this truth, you stop praying, you stop fasting, the old man is ready to capture you. So what does this mean is you have to work on yourself. You have to work on your spirit, or you would catch yourself moving backwards. A thief does not wait until he sees you coming to run, right? A thief waits, until there's enough cover. So that's the point why I'm trying to bring out. So the old man wouldn't let you know that, hey, I'm here. A thief wouldn't let you know that, hey, I'm here. Soon or shortly after you encourage the old man to enter you, you would find yourself liking off stuff, right? You would find yourself liking these pagan holidays. You would find yourself liking unclean foods. And to you, you're basically in the right mind, because guess what? I'm still praying, I'm still doing this, but let me try this and let me try that. Right? That's called being a reprobate. So Now we covered going backwards in unrighteousness. So that's when you go back and you give in to the old man, you go onto your own vomit. But how to move backwards in righteousness? Or how can your life move backwards for righteous sake? Let's go to the account of Joseph, right? And we start at Genesis 39. So if for no ones who for those who don't know, right, this is the account of Joseph, his brother, his brothers sold him into basically slavery for jealousy, and this is his story here in Genesis the 39th chapter, right? So it says, and Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, brought him, sorry, Salakia, bought him of the hand of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. So Joseph, he's here as a slave, and we will call this stage one, right? And you'll see why I called it stage one. So Joseph, from being with his brothers, is now in a lower estate, and we'll call this stage one, right? So let's continue reading. So it says, and the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord had made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer of his house, and all that he had he put into his hand. So Joseph basically got into a higher estate, and let's call this stage two, right? Let's call it stage two, right? He is in a higher estate. So lucky, let me just move myself to his side here, right? So he was um, from stage one, right? From being a prisoner to stage two, right? He's no longer there, right? He's elevating. So let's read, right? And it came to pass from the time that he had made him overseer in his house and all over all that he had, that the Lord, Salakia, blessed the Egyptians' house for Joseph's sake, and the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. So Joseph, he was blessed, he was elevated, right? So this is an example of us, in the truth, you're asking the Lord for something, and Lord willing, it happened. You finally got that job. You finally got that business to start. You finally got um that healing from whatever sickness. You finally got that. But what we neglect or what we don't pay attention is Satan. We don't pay attention to Satan here. Because we know the story of Joseph. He is going to be tempted by his master's wife. Right? And as you can see in this picture, he's here, he's living his life. The Lord has blessed him because he was unhappy in stage one, but now he's happy in stage two. But guess what? Who's happy also? Satan. Because Satan is ready to tempt you. So, for example, you're in a job, and I'll just use a job because that's a common thing that a lot of people is seeking, especially in this truth, a sort of income. And all of a sudden on the job, there are off things the workers talking about Christmas, Valentine's Day, Easter, and they're talking about all sorts of lust and whatever vanity. So there's always some sort of temptation, just like with Joseph, right? So Joseph is basically going to be tempted, and he is getting tempted, right? Let's go to Genesis 39 and verse 8, right? So it says, but he refused and said unto his master's wife, behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and he had committed all that he had to my hand. Salakia. There is none greater in the house than I, neither had he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? So, long story short, he was basically saying, at the end of the day, how can he sin against the Most High? And especially do this wicked act to his master, right? Um, so, for example, you're in a job, right? And I'll use the job as an example. You're in a job, and the job asks, we want you to work on the Sabbath every day for the rest of your life until you quit here. We want you to work on the Sabbath. We know you have your feast days to keep, but we want you to work on those feast days. Tomorrow is your so-called Day of Atonement. We want you to work on the Day of Atonement. So there's always temptation, there's always Satan or some sort of nonsense there on the job that's there to tempt you. But at the end of the day, you don't want to affect the job too. Just like Joseph, he's saying, there is none greater than I, Salakia, there is none greater in this house than I, neither had he kept back anything from me but thee, right? So you don't want to mess up the job, right? Because the job literally helped you out of this situation, stage one. But at the end of the day, you don't want to mess up with the Most High. So, long story short, you could literally see the temptation, right? So, this is temptation going on here. So, and it says, and it came to pass as she spake to Joseph day by day. So it wasn't just a one-time thing. It it was multiple occasions that she was trying to tempt him. For example, once again on a job, they will come day by day. Um, we wanted to work on the Sabbath again. How about next week? You tell them no. How about the other week? Um, there's a lot of functions happening, especially around Valentine's Day. Why don't you come and participate in these functions? Um, and you say no. How about, and they ask some other function, well, how about Christmas? And you say no. How day by day, they try their best to tempt you. So it says that he hearkened not unto her to lie by her or to be with her. So, long story short, we should be like Joseph and try our best to don't do anything. So it says, and it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there within. And she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. So this was the final temptation. He was like, she was like, you know what? Guess what? Today is the day I am getting you to screw up. So, for example, on our job, what they would say, right? Okay, today is the day you would do what I say. Today is the day you're going to work on the Sabbath, or else you're fired. Today is the day you're going to work on your feast days, unless you get fired. Today is the day. Long story short, today is the day. So she literally tried her best to persecute Joseph, but it didn't work. Because why? He left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. And what do you think happened after that? Well, let's read on. And Joseph's master took him and put him into Salakia. Let me just Salakia. Into the prison's place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there, Salakia, in the prison. So, long story short, Joseph went back to stage one. So he went from being in stage two back to stage one. So this is simply to show that his life literally moved backwards for righteous sake. So how much times we made certain sacrifices in this truth, We don't want to work on the Sabbath. We want to keep the feast days. We don't want to do anything at the same time to affect the job. But at the end of the day, they don't comply with what you wanted, with what you want, and you're back in stage one, right? You got fired, things going bad, you got demoted on whatever position, you start feeling back ill. So Joseph was back in stage one. So once again, this represents us, or this is a proper example of how, or the things that we face on a daily basis. But guess what? But the Lord was with Joseph and shewed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. So he was in prison, and um, he went up to be a servant, but not just any servant, a good servant to his master. Now he's back in prison. But guess what? The Lord was with him and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. So, long story short, Joseph, yes, he was back in stage one, but he was still making it. How many times, like for example, we lost our jobs and we're still able to pay the bills, still able to make some groceries, still able to take care of your family. So at the end of the day, the Lord was with Joseph, and we might not think the Lord is with us because of the struggles, but when you actually click back and say, hey, somehow every time, even though I'm not working, I'm still able to do this. I'm still able to get some grocery, even though it's not how I like it. Something always happens, whether somebody comes and give you something, or whether you um get a paid job for a day to pay whatever bills, or long story short, the Lord is with you, right? So Joseph, he was in stage one, but at the end of the day, he was still able to make it. So um let's continue reading on. So it says, and it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. So the moral of the story, what we want from this, or the point, is verse 1, where it says 2 full years. So Joseph was in this lower estate for 2 whole years for righteous sake. And this is where a lot of people in the truth bow out, because they would be like, well, damn, well, I did everything just for the Most High, and I still lost the job, and it's been 6 months, right? It's been um 10 weeks, right? It's been just a lot of time, and I don't see my life elevating. There's a lot of wicked people who don't do anything, who's not in the truth, and they are getting um blessed, right? They're so-called blessed. But guess what? According to Sirach 2, if you are coming to serve the Lord, you have to be prepared for endurement. So Joseph was in a lower estate, and think about it. Don't you think he was seeing everyone around him, those who are outside the prison, those who are free, elevating themselves? And don't you think he was like, well, damn, I'm just a prisoner? Because we all do it. We all do it in the truth. But at the end of the day, endurement is key. He that endured to the end, same shall be saved. So yes, don't mind if you're in a lower position, and you know you're in a house, and you had a job that could help you take care of the house, but now you lose the job, and now you have to endure with the shabby old house that you're trying to fix up for however amount of time. So we know that we have some enduring to do, because in this truth you have enduring to do. Look at Joseph, 2 full years. Yours could be 6 months, 2 months, 3 months without working, but long story short, the Lord has you. So don't you dare think that, Yes, guess what? The Lord isn't dealing with me. This truth doesn't make sense because a lot of unrighteous people not keeping the commandments and still making it, right? So don't ever think like that. So moral of the story is we know what happens next in the story of Joseph after his 2 whole years. This is what happens, right? He told a dream that Pharaoh wanted to find out the meaning of, and this is what happened. So this is Genesis 41 and verse 42. So it says, and Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bowed the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. So, long story short, Joseph got exalted for enduring, still doing righteousness in the sake of the Lord, right? And the Lord basically boosted him up. So, he was in stage one, being sold, right, and being bought out of the hands of the Ishmaelites. And then in stage two, he elevates himself. He's now a proper servant. Now he's back to stage one. But guess what? He's in stage three. And you know, sometimes we don't look at this, but what is 2 months to suffering versus the rest of your life being happy? What is Joseph's 2 years of enduring versus the rest of his life, being happy? I think there's even a scripture, just quoting it, where it says, the amount of time we suffer on this earth isn't equivalent to the amount of time we are going to rejoice in the kingdom. Because man's day is short, we live like 70, and due to all these curses and crimes, we probably die younger than that, right? And at the end of the day, what is that compared to the millions of years we are going to enjoy in the kingdom? So that's a question you really had to ask yourself. So Joseph went from Salakia, right? Stage one to stage two, and now he's here in stage three, right? He's better than ever, right? And Satan is nowhere to be seen, right? So this is a proper example of us. So we was in stage one, we didn't have anything, we move up, move back down, but guess what? We move back up fully. Because think about it, right? The Lord understands your situation, and the Lord understands your sacrifice that you are trying to make for Him. So guess what? You finally get a job where you don't have to worry about working in the Sabbath. You finally get something that you don't have to worry about this. You're finally cured so that you don't have to worry about, whatever sickness you're dealing with or whatever. I'm just using some random examples. We know that once the Lord um, takes care of you, right? He puts you in a position where, well, this is my servant, this basically deserves this, right? So, in summary, what we just went through was how to know if you're moving backwards in righteousness, and how to move you're moving backwards in unrighteousness. To know if you're moving backwards in unrighteousness, basically you're going back to your old sins. You're basically going back and doing the same nonsense that you basically did your best to fast off, to pray off. And to know if you're moving backwards for righteous sake, basically you're making sacrifices for this truth. Like the scripture says, it's better to make it with your hand chopped off than your entire body cast into fire. Yes, we know that you'll be at a disadvantage if you have one hand, but guess what? That's better than losing your whole self. Like, let's say you're in a relationship, and long story short, your spouse was saving you from certain problems he was dealing with financially and mentally and all these other stuff. Or let's say I was living in an old shabby house, right? And his spouse saves you from that. But guess what? Things not working out for the sake of the Most High. It's better to go back into that poor situation you were in than to stay in that situation you was facing. Because what if Joseph said yes? What if he said yes to his master's wife? Things would have gone different, right? He might have even been put to death. So, moral of the story is the Lord sees and He hears our requests that we are making towards Him. Now we know that the end goal is not to make it in this life, but to make it to the kingdom. But let's be real, there are some things that we need in order to make it in this life. So with that, hopefully that the topic was understandable. Hopefully the topic um, made somebody realize something, or hopefully the topic was edifying, and hopefully the presentation also was edifying. So that I hope everyone understand and try their best to keep the commandments, keep the faith, and try their best to understand that the Lord hears your supplications, and in due time it will come to pass. Right. So with that, we like to say Shalom Israel.